without doing anything that you normally would do on the guitar. No scales, no notes, no theory, nothing like that. Just communicate. And what really strikes me, and I can remember clearly, is how some of the people in the class really objected to this and actually wouldn't do it, wouldn't try it, and just thought, this is bullshit, I'm not going to sit around here scraping on my, doing whatever you're going to kind of hook up. As time has gone by, and for me, I've gotten, to the point where I'm generally musically literate, I can read, I can write, I've done, composing and atonal fugues and all that stuff. That exercise that he taught me has really stuck with me the most and been something that I found is really like the basis of good music. And the basic idea is that music is about communication. And, if you can get over that first hurdle of just connecting with somebody on some very simple level, that's what people are going to react to when it comes right down to it. Now, if on top of that, you can, advance and learn all the other stuff that you can learn in any different spectrum, in any different part of music, then all the better. It's going to be an improvement, but that's the first step. The way we do things in our band now, we practice a lot, and it's something that we've always done. And generally, one of the things we'll do in practice is basically that exercise, but with a little bit of a hook. We sit around in a circle, and I'll start playing something. It can be any simple little thing. And then everybody else comes in, the other three members, with something that's very simple and then make some sort of a pattern that is music. So we get all that going until we have a pattern that we all feel like is working. At that point, the person on my right, since I started the exercise, says, hey. Everybody says, hey. And then Mike, who sits on my right, it's his turn to slightly modulate whatever pattern we have going. So let's say I had started, and he was going, or something like that. He might change it to minor or add one more note, something very simple. At that point, everybody in the room has to change their little part of the exercise to fit with his. The idea here is, and when you settle into a new groove, after you've modulated, everybody's modulated into the new groove, everybody screams, hey. Okay, it sounds weird, but maybe sometime we can actually try this to use it as an example. I get 3 people up here sometime during the day, but you wouldn't believe, in order to do that exercise, you have to be consciously listening to everyone in the room, not just yourself. I think most musicians have, myself included, have times when you're just introverted, you're thinking about the scale you're playing or what a cool riff I'm playing, and you're not really paying attention to what the drummer's doing. You might be paying attention to what the bass player is doing, but not necessarily the drummer. In order to do this exercise, you have to be listening actively to everyone else that's playing, because you can't move on to the next segment until everyone else in the room has come up with a little phrase that fits in with your, making a sum total of the whole. And it gets going. When you get going, it's going around in a circle, and the thing just keeps changing and changing and changing and changing. It's really an amazing thing. Like I said, all of this grew out of what Barry had taught me that day in that class, and something that seemed like an incredibly simple thing, but turned out to be very important. Anybody has anything they want to say? Just speak up or ask a question. Yeah.
During that exercise, what would he do?
Well, he's just doing it. He was a big problem, and for those of you who have heard of him, he's a big problem. I know there's a lot of people up front. I don't know how many of you all around have heard Fish, the band, but we do a lot of improvising. And our drummer, his tendency, he's really all over the place. Basically like a jazz drummer. I think a lot of times in jazz you might find the bass player kind of holding down the groove and the drummer going off a little bit, the bass player's walking. As opposed to rock, a lot of times you have the drummer really laying it down and the bass player might be doing something a little more out there. Our drummer is really a jazz drummer at heart playing rock. He goes all over the place. And we would do this exercise, and it took him longer than anybody else to get the idea that, see, when you start your phrase, you have to be thinking, I've got to play something that everybody else in the room is going to be able to hook up with, And the general tendency is, what am I going to play? I got to play something. Even just between the 4 of us who are close friends, it really is incredibly hard to get to the point where you're open and you're like, all I want to do is connect with other people. So for him, he would start with these things like, and we'd all kind of be sitting there like, well, how am I supposed to compliment that? And as time went on, I think he just started to realize that I've got to play something here that, because if I can't, if I'm, a musician, and if I can't understand what he's doing, then how the heck is the audience going to understand what he's doing, And really, it's paid off in droves. I mean, we can go out there and start improvising on stage, and I can feel people reacting to it, and simplicity, one of the things we were just talking about is we did a tour with Santana, and then I'll get you after that. Carlos, I mean, to me, is one of the most. Probably everybody in this room can sing, the guitar solo note for note to Oye Como Va or Black Magic Woman, and there's a reason for that. He's playing like straight out of his heart. He's hearing it first and coming. None of this riffing, like madly riffing stuff. It just goes over people's heads, And it's such a hard thing to do. It's such a hard thing for me to do. But the direction that I've been trying to go in, and that I've noticed that really seems to work, no matter what style you're playing, is to get to a part where people can understand what you're saying. Just like when you're having a conversation with somebody. There's a point you're trying to make, you're getting it across in the simplest way. So, something that Carlos does really well, I think. I mean, just nails you in the heart with that one note, or B.B. King or somebody like that. And, I've heard this kind of stuff. I remember sitting right there and hearing people say, listen to B.B. King, listen to Eric Clapton, but, you're getting into it and you hear all this other stuff, you're like, yeah, okay, I'll listen to B.B. King, I'll listen to Eric Clapton, but really, as time goes on, it's taking years for it to totally dawn on me, what that point was. So what are you going to say?
The writing process, is it kind of jamming, or do you guys sit down and write songs on paper?
Okay. The question was, in the writing process, how in my band we do that. We use almost every different method. So there might be points where we'll have a band practice or something, we'll do this exercise and get a group going that's really happening. Lyrics, it's a song, right? That would be the left side level or whatever. On the other hand, we might do something where it's completely composed, and I used to study composition for a while, and I would do these, write out the whole thing, and everybody does know how to read in the band. So that would be the other extreme, and we would use, the writing method. There's certain kinds of music that you can't, you just can't convey with words, because if it's composed like in a fugue sort of a way, which is one line chasing the other, then you've got to be looking at it harmonically in both directions, you know what I mean? Like if you stopped it at any point in time, there's a chord going on between the four parts. At the same time you want it to go, have a linear interest where it keeps going that way. And so the only way to do that is to sit down at a piano and write it out. So it would be a variety of different ways of writing. That just made me think of something else. Another thing that I've been sort of discovering as time goes on, that it's this whole concept of tension and release, which a lot of our music is based on that, and a lot of jazz or any kind of music really is based on that. Where you're basically either playing on top of a chord, like you're sitting on a chord and playing, or you're playing up to a chord. So like if I was playing on E minor or something, I'm just playing, I could either be playing this E minor scale, I'm just basically sitting on it. Or I could take it, what I like to try to do most of the time is sort of take people on some kind of a musical journey. And the way to do that, what I found, is basically using tension and release. So if I started saying, you're out and then kind of back home again. And the way I did it that time was like a diminished kind of thing. That's one way you can do it, or there's hundreds of different ways. I think pretty much what I've found based on, like if you take a tritone, which is splitting the octave in half, and it's, there's one tritone in an octave, the tritone wants to resolve. The tritone is basically the basic building block of music, Western music, as far as I'm concerned. If you hear that tritone right there, if you move each of those notes out the half step, you'll hear this. It resolves, right? If you move them both in a half step, it resolves to a different chord. So anytime that you've got that tritone relationship, you've got tension. This is tense. This is resolved, right? The tritone is in the dominant seventh chord. That's inherent in the dominant seventh chord. So basically, anytime you have a dominant seventh chord, you have a chord that wants to resolve and go from tension to release. And that, it might seem complicated, it might seem simple to some people, but it really is basically simple, and that is something that a power that you can use when you're improvising to take people all over the place. The ultimate would be in jazz, there's progressions. You can take a blues form, a simple 12-bar blues form, and substitute these dominant seventh things coming down and basically sound. And it sounds like a chromatic scale going down, and it's basically this kind of dominant seventh chord going like that. The idea is, for me, you can use that. I mean, I don't want to get too complicated here, and I feel like I might be doing that already. But the simple germ of the idea is that you can take people out into like tense land, or you can bring them back into resolved land. And personally, I'm thinking about that constantly while I'm playing. I'm not thinking, because the other thing is I try not to think about anything when I'm playing. Just make the mind go blank and let the stuff pour out of you. But there is, when I'm practicing or when I'm conceptualizing, that's basically, and what we do as a band, and we practice doing so that everybody's doing it. You can really bring people out on a limb and hold them there for a while and then take them back. Maybe I should try to give you an example of that. All right, somebody have a guitar? All right, want to go up? That's okay. Better. You got it. Okay, let me get mine. I got it. That's okay, as long as you can strum some chords. We'll just do this acoustic. This guitar. Keep this on there. So the concept I'm talking about, if you do D minor, stash. Sure. Okay. So it's D minor. Yep. Just play that. So he's basically playing like this 2-5-1, the minor thing. This is a chord progression that I stole from a jazz tune called Jump Monk, and by Mingus. Great song, and maybe we can get a real book from somebody. Dave over there, we can play that one during the concert tonight, so we can kind of continue this into the concert. So you go ahead and play that progression. The idea here would be that, tell me if you can hear me. You guys hear me in the back? Okay, I take it down a little bit so I can play that. Okay. Yeah, keep going. Just down and going. Here in the room. So I can kind of sit on D minor here. Just kind of walking around on D minor. That's basically sitting there. Now I'll do it again, but this time I'm going to take you out kind of into what I call tension land. Hang out there for a while and then bring you back to D minor. It should be more interesting. Good. The basic idea here is, as much as you can, to kind of bring out. And there's a guy that I studied with for a while when I went to another thing, Jazz in July. Ted Dunbar, his name is, and he wrote a book about this. And his book is 23 different scales that have a tritone in them, basically, resolving to some chord. So if you're in C, then it's a G7 chord, but you're going to C. So the tritone is basically F and B, right? And F and B goes out to that resolves to C. He wrote a book with 23 different scales that have that tritone in it, and each one of those scales, because it has the tritone, creates tension leading the ear to C, back home to that C chord. And if you can take this in lots of different ways. And basically, I'm in a rock band here, so if you're thinking, well, this is jazz shit, and I want to play rock, and it comes from jazz. But if you don't like jazz, or if you like to listen to jazz but you don't want to play jazz, there's stuff that jazz has to offer for any rock player. I don't care who it is, Mike McCready or Pearl Jam or somebody. You're going to learn from it because it's going to teach your ears about harmonic motion. And this is a good example. It's basically all based around this concept. So, what was I saying? Oh yeah, you can take it to any level. If you were playing like a 4-chord song like that, right? I was basically just doing a simple thing where I was kind of going D minor kind of stuff, and then I would say like A7 or A7 flat 9, that kind of thing, back to D minor as a simple tension. If you're really advanced, which is like the stuff that Ted Dunbar was doing, who I learned this from, you could be doing that same concept on each one of the 4 chords. So you're playing on D, because D minor, B flat, D minor 7 flat 5, A7 flat 9, which is basically 2 5 1 to D minor. You could be doing that tension and release thing on every chord, and he does that kind of stuff. I haven't been able to. Yeah.
A lot of Fish's music encompasses like a bunch of different styles, or at least like alludes to that, like jazz, country, funk, hard rock, and different things. And it sometimes sounds to me like you're trying to parody those styles rather than to play them directly. Is that your intention?
That's definitely not our intention, though. I could see how that could that might come across that way. Really, the way that whole thing started happening was just basically for everybody in the band having a anything goes attitude. And in the beginning, I remember there were certain kind of camps among the four of us, like, oh, I like jazz, I like classical. And I would come to a band practice and say, well, I want to play a jazz song. And, somebody else in the band would say, well, if you want to play a jazz song, I want to play Uncle Pen, by Bill Monroe. You had to kind of give and take, and over time, really, it isn't supposed to be, we were actually trying our best to play those styles, but maybe the reason it comes across that way is we actually never really set out to be great in any of those styles. I think we really learned them as tools to be able to play our own music. So like the song that I was just playing, Stash, like that beginning section. That's the melody from the beginning of that song, and that was like I was listening to a lot of Benny Goodman big band style jazz, and they'd have these clarinet lines that were answered with the band. When I play that in the band, they'll answer, so I'll say, the band, and that's, so like each of those kind of things, that's an example. Like I never set out to play 40s big band jazz as well as those guys did, because you'd be beating your head against the wall, or it would take a lifetime just to learn any one of those styles. And there's so much stuff that we wanted to do that I'll learn as much of it as I can, and then incorporate it into the original stuff right away.
When you go off into tension land live, how much of that is of the moment and how much of that is really rehearsed?
Oh, most of it's of the moment. Unless it's a worked out section, more and more we're trying to have the whole almost. There's sections that are actually written out, like the thing that I just played. So like in Stash, we'll do all that, and then when it gets to the sort of the jam section, it's past that. That's still written out. but like the question about the composition thing, I learned a lot about tension studying composition, because if you study like big band arrangements and stuff, they would do that. There's a structure over time. If this is a 3.5 minute song, where they might build up to like a big 5-chord kind of thing, where if it's like Bewitched or something. You know that one? Like Benny Goodman or something like that would take this, or Eddie Sauter, who was the arranger, would take this song, simple little melody. Everybody can hear the melody. The singer might sing it, or the guy would play it, or whoever, and then put this arrangement in where they're going to modulate and stuff, and eventually, usually, you're going to end up on some kind of big altered 5-chord, and it's going to come back home at the end, right? So there's like a triangular tension thing. Same with fugues, which, the classical style of composition. A lot of the thing about studying these different styles is you start to realize that they're all kind of the same, and there's a lot more similarities than people think. And people become stylistically bound to one style, and I think they might turn off other styles and not realize the incredible similarities. I mean, if you take Yngwie Malmsteen, right, and Wynton Marsalis, these two people have nothing in common, basically. I mean, one is jazz, one is metal, or whatever style you want to put Yngwie in. Great musicians of very different scope. Okay, who did Yngwie Malmsteen listen to? He listened to Jimi Hendrix a lot, definitely. I mean, among other people. Who did Jimi Hendrix listen to? He listened to blues, black blues, and, this stuff came out of basically the same place that the music that Wynton Marsalis listens to. If you want to look at it that way, as a tree, black American music spawned basically both of those two people. And it's really not that many generations back. And, bluegrass and music coming from Ireland over, the more you study the whole history of the thing, it's really interesting for me to see that the lines cross, and there's no reason why you shouldn't be listening to and learning all the different styles, because the more similarities you see between the different styles, when you can pinpoint the similarities, you see that's something that is probably a strong thing in music in general, like maybe this point that I'm talking about, the tension and release thing. Yeah.
Fish has some of the greatest vocal harmonies and most interesting things. And they don't sound just like improvisation. Come on, now you all.
Right. All right. He asked about our vocal harmonies. This just goes along with the learning every style thing. We actually take barbershop quartet lessons. There's 4 of us, and unfortunately, the guy who was teaching us just passed away, which is very sad. But so none of us. Anybody can do this stuff too. I mean, it's incredible. There's so much stuff out there to learn. I mean, if I can impress on you anything that I've learned that has helped us to be successful, it's that not to turn yourself off to something, and not say I don't like that until you really give it a chance. You know what I mean? So we take these barbershop quartet lessons, and we learn Sweet Adeline. That's all traditional. Like that arrangement for Sweet Adeline that we do is written in 1896 or something. It's been around forever, and all this stuff that seems like, you might think, that's corny music, or that's not my style. But okay, it's not your style. But imagine how cool a heavy metal song would sound if suddenly in the middle of some raging guitar solo, 4-part harmony comes in. You gotta be creative with this stuff and use it in ways that it wasn't intended to be used. And there's so much stuff out there. And then all of a sudden, so we're learning these barbershop quartet things, and all of a sudden we start noticing that, wow, these bluegrass people are doing these harmonies too, and aren't there a lot of similarities? They put the 6th up there in the harmony, up above the, or, boy, if you want to put an altered note, like a 9th or something, you better have a flatted 7th below it. Or, you start to notice these things, like, okay, well, they're doing classical choral music, and everybody's doing it. And you start to realize, well, that's just something that works according to our Western, version of harmony. But there's people. I don't know if you've ever listened to the Bulgarian women's vocal choir, people like that. I mean, there's other stuff other than Western harmony. Worth checking out. Yeah.
Songs like songs and Dave Codes, they're all like so multi-climaxes. Like they just keep on
Okay, he's asking about basically the tendency that we have in this band to have these things kind of build the climaxes and keep going to more and more and more climaxes. And some of these songs are, I don't know, like I said, I'm not sure who's heard what, but some of the songs, the one that he was just talking about is just a pretty long song. It's got a variety of different sections that sort of build on each other, finally peaking out in absolute mayhem. That kind of thing. Starting off with a very quiet, four-part sort of classical thing and building up. And I think it's just a tendency, and because now you're saying that, it's something that, like I said, I think about in improvisation, and I think about in composing too, that to me, that's one of the beauties of music, is the ability through a variety of means, some of them purely harmonic and some of them energy, of bringing people up to a climax, and then dropping them off, and then hopefully bringing them up to another one. Okay.
A lot of your stuff seems to be triad-based, and a lot of your solos too.
Yeah.
But like, how did you work that out practically? Like, how could we use, like, how do you think of triads when you're playing numbers?
Well, I never really thought some of the songs, I can see that more in some of the chord progressions. Horn, again, as an example. Or I actually try to think more, I think chromatically when I'm soloing. But one thing that I do a lot, and maybe this is coming out in a weird way. Oh, he asked about my solos or song structure being sort of triadic, triads, jumping around in weird ways. And two things that makes me think of. One is that I try to, if the things, like I was saying before, I've been trying to get simpler and simpler and simpler and realizing that that's more important than getting more and more complicated. And one of the things that I do is I sit around playing like TV themes and, today when I was driving down the car, my girlfriend was driving and I just pick up the thing and put on like, the easy listening station or something, because the songs on easy listening usually have stronger melodies, despite how cheesy and awful they are. You know what I mean? I mean, really, it's true. Or anything, just put the stand thing on and sit there with the stand thing on and play whatever comes on. So, if you're playing wood, okay, now you know that one. Now you do. I picked up my Beatles book and I was going through the, just that, and then go to the next one. What's it? Across the Universe is followed by, I don't know, And I Love Her or something, whatever. And you just do that and that. And I think maybe that style of playing is sounding like, because it's simple little phrases and in a big, thick, heavy texture of jamming, I think hopefully trying to play that way is coming out more sounding like a triad kind of thing. But the other thing that you just said, actually I've been noticing that a lot of modern, like thrashier type, or grungier type rock music, like Pearl Jam and Nirvana, the chord progressions that are kind of stylistically in these days are these triads jumping around major thirds. So like if you had It Smells Like Teen Spirit, okay, if you have Alive by Pearl Jam, and they're all, really, this is the thing about, like, you sit down and analyze this shit. It's like a style that's happening right now. And they're really, Alice in Chains, bands like that, these jumping up major thirds with triads. Okay, so then I'm sitting there the other day playing around with that. You can do things with that. It's hard to play over that progression, really, if you think about it. And, so I was doing, if it's, E, G, E, you could do like, that goes right down, almost in a chromatic. You can go all the way down the neck doing that, and it sounds pretty. Let's see. Let's see. That's just with those, find, you can take any one of those kind of songs, any song, you can learn, if you take a little German, any idea. So go ahead, yeah.
There's a phrase that shows up in Squirming Coil, I think, and then also a phrase you play on the guitar, and also shows up on, I think, It's on Ice, or It's Ice. And I was wondering, are you using a device? And the person wrote a letter to your newsletter, and they said, "Does that mean anything?" And you said, "Yes."
Oh,
and I was wondering, does that have anything to do with a compositional device that Frank Zappa used? And if so, what's your conceptual continuity?
Okay. I would have to say realistically that I didn't understand what the guy was saying.
I wanted to ask about Game End. I was just wondering when the speed was like someone for that, or if you read a lot of Tolkien maybe, or
Okay.
intensely when you were growing up.
Well, this is he's asking me a question about a musical that I wrote when I was at Goddard, which is this very strange and small alternative school in Vermont, in the woods of Vermont. There was about 35 or 40 people on campus when I went there. And they basically design your own program and this whole kind of thing. A lot of sweat lodges and stuff like that. And I wrote a musical. I had written children's music with my mother. This kind of comes into play too, but I don't know. I used to write children's music with my mother. She wrote Sesame Street magazine for 7 years, and we would do songs together. I did the music, she did the lyrics, that kind of thing, and we had a couple albums published. And then we wrote a musical, which was a TV children's musical, which never got produced. But some of the melodies and stuff actually ended up in fish songs. One of them was the one you said from Lizards, which actually used to be a song called If I Were a Dog. And now it's no Lizards. But anyway, and then I wrote this musical, which has now been sucked up by the band, sort of, and songs. There's lots of songs. So a lot of the characters and stuff in our songs come back to this musical. So the germ of the idea, that was the germ of the idea, was that I'd just written another musical, and I just really liked the experience of coming up with characters, and then you have musical themes that mean different things. I mean, lately I've been just starting to get into opera, which is, I try to listen to everything I can, and really, sometimes you got to listen to things like 3 times, and you can really find the beauty in it. I mean, my philosophy is there's some kind of music out there that people are gung-ho about, like, to die for. I love this music, and there's that huge of a group of people that like it that much. There's got to be something going for it, and sometimes I just can't see it, and I can't see why anybody would like. Well, I'm not even gonna say it. Just because somebody might. I like Kenny G. Or something. I mean, you might like Kenny G. I just don't like that kind of thing. I don't know.
In my band, like movie bands, all these different parts, like parts of songs. I have trouble unifying, putting together.
Oh, really?
Team the songs. And like your songs help that with all kinds of different parts. Like, how do you connect them, or how do you find like the unification?
Well, for me, I would say he said if you've got a lot of different parts, how do you figure out ways to combine them? Because our songs have a lot of sections that run together, and this to me is basically study composition, because the art of composition is, as far as my definition of it, is that composing is taking a germ of an idea and developing it, right? And songwriting or something might be more of the art of coming up with a germ of an idea. And by studying composition, you learn. I mean, you'll notice that like a lot of classical composers and stuff would take a theme by another composer and develop it. And we have a song on our newest album that's the All Things Considered theme. I don't know if you listen to that, the American Public Radio, that whole thing. But it's a great little theme, and strong, makes a statement, and then the whole thing is just developing it. So you're trying to get variety, you're trying to never repeat a single measure, so it's always changing. The melody is dropping to the bass, the melody is dropping to the keyboards, the left hand, it's spreading out, it's crushing together, it's playing backwards, now it's upside down, and it's fast. It's always changing, so it's like infinite variety and infinite sameness. That's what I learned from my composition teacher who's a composer in Middlebury, and it's something that, again, has stuck with me through all improvising and everything. I mean, if you can get some kind of theme happening, develop it. So that's the thing about hooking those sections. To me, putting them together is the fun part. You know, and coming up with them is fun too. Like I said, that would be the way to do it. Like study that kind of stuff or focus on it.
Did you study composition in college?
Where I went to school was not a music school. It was like liberal arts school. So what I did was I went here for one summer, and I went to Jazz in July for one summer, which is another kind of jazz workshop, and that was later. And I found a composer who was a working composer, not a teacher, just a great guy. And I just searched out for this, and I spent a lot of time looking at it, talking to different composers. There's composers out there. It's for composers these days. It's tough. It's a tough road, a tough world, and with Reagan and the whole, the arts are not getting money the way they were at some points. But it's always been a struggle. They're not getting money, and that's where it's hitting. Symphonies, local symphonies and stuff are so For a composer, you're not going to make any money, you're not going to be known. So there's probably composers that if you really dug deep, that are living right around this area, that you're never going to hear about because they can't get their works performed because it's so expensive to rehearse a 120-piece orchestra, and then that whole thing. But that's what I did. I didn't go to music school. I studied sort of I did study, but I studied the difference for me with Ernie, who's the guy I was studying with, was that the first day that I walked in there, I tried to go to music school at UVM, and they wouldn't let me write anything. They wanted to wait till I was a senior to write, and I wanted to write now. I said, I want to write. And Ernie, I walked in, I sat down with him. He said, here's the well-tempered clavier. Go home and play this on the piano, which was just a monumental task in front of me. And then he said, and come back next week with a two-part invention, 35 measures long, with a one-measure theme. And I didn't have any idea what I was doing. I went home, all my parallel fits and, awful things, blah, blah, blah. Wrote the whole thing, came back, and he looked at it and said, this is terrible. But at least I had gotten going. It was so much fun, I mean, just to know that I could try this. Just writing the notes on the paper was it was like drawing or something. It looked so cool when it was done, and it was, and then the next week he said, all right, scratched out a bunch of stuff. He said, this is bad, don't do this is bad. Now write a jazz, big band jazz arrangement. Start off by writing it just on the piano, so it's in 4 parts. Went home, started writing it, came back next, oh no, bad. Go home again, do it again, and slowly it started to actually be something with a lot of hand-holding. And then after that was done, he said, okay, now let's orchestrate it. Well, he said, trumpets can play from this to this. They don't like playing up here because it takes too much breath. They don't like holding long notes because it takes too much breath. They don't like hitting short notes or whatever. Saxophones, boom, start doing it, and you're done, And it's another thing where I've got friends in bands. John Poppin, who's in Blues Traveler, who I had this conversation with 6 months ago when they were doing their album. He's like, I really want to do a string section, but I can't, I can't do that. I was like, John, just do it. Just sit down and do it. You can sing, you can play the harmonica, blow out the string line on your harmonica, sit at a piano, blow the first note, find out what note it is, write it on the paper. It'll be wrong, and then find somebody that knows what they're doing, and he actually pay him $1,000 and tell him to redo it for you. No, and he ended up doing it, but it's on their album. Yeah. What's that? Yep, he thanked me for because I kicked his butt. And then,
do you do all the arrangements when you have wild country?
Yeah, I did most of them. Mike did a couple of arrangements. He was asking if I did the horn arrangements for. He did a couple tour with a horn section. And yeah, and the thing is, I keep coming back to this simple thing, but really, it sounds like the more that this stuff comes out, okay, I'm doing these horn arrangements or whatever, it's really a lot simpler. I know it's easy for me to sit here and say that, but if you're feeling at any time like, oh, it's such a monumental, this huge thing in front of me, learning this jazz or learning to write for horns or anything like that, it really, most of this stuff really isn't as complicated as it seems if you actually sit down and try to do it and are willing to make mistakes and willing to just put your butt on the line and do it. Like, you could come up, I don't know, there's probably people in here who don't play jazz, may not have an interest or have an interest and don't know how to do it and are very confused by the whole jazz thing. And if there wasn't so much pressure from other musicians and from the whole thing to like be great, or if there was no pressure, you could get up here right now and I could play the chords to your jazz song. You could just kind of listen to it and say, well, I'm kind of hearing C. It kind of sounds like it's going around C. And okay, well, I'm just going to play C major scale because that's what I know. And play what you hear, and just simple. And that's going to be better than, in a way, than trying to get up and play some complicated, stuff that's above your head. The best thing for me has been, like I said, turning on the radio while we're driving down here and playing just one note, simple melody to whatever song's on the radio, regardless of what kind of song it is. And like I said, I ripped out the table of contents of the Beatles book and just walked down it and one by one. Yeah.
When did you first start playing guitar, and what pointed you in the right direction?
I started when I was in 11th grade, and I played drums for a long time before. And you asked when I started playing guitar, and I was going to say I played drums my whole life, pretty much from when I was really young, and just wanted to get into harmony and picked up the guitar and found it came pretty easy to me because I play kind of rhythmically, and if that's resulted in any problem, and it might have resulted in a problem, it's that I have this tendency to fight the drummer sometimes if I feel like he's not playing the groove, because I'm so used to being the drummer for so many years that he's not playing the groove that I think is the right groove, too fast or too slow or something. I'll start banging the guitar, trying to get him to speed up or something, which is really a horrible thing to do. You should never do it. I mean, the drummer's going to set it up and you're going to go with it, or it's going to be a disaster. So, yeah. I'm not a good solo artist, and I never intended to be. And honestly, it's not that I have no interest in it. I'd like to be. I have an interest in whatever. But the way to do that, the way to have these things happen is to be listening to the other people in the band. And I've been trying as hard as I can over the last few years to train myself to not pay any attention to what I'm doing at all on stage. That's my ultimate goal. My ultimate goal is to go an entire tour and end the tour and not notice a single thing that I played. That sounds stupid, but I'm telling you, everybody in the band is doing that. It's magic. It's incredible. I'm listening to what Paige is doing on the piano, He's over there, and I'm like, wow, what a great thing. And you naturally, he's playing, some little riff. And I might hear, this is what Paige is playing, I might hear him. You hear those harmonics? I mean, you just let your head, and that's, to me, what I was just singing right there. I'm really concentrating 100% on what's happening over here, and just letting something fit, underneath it to support it a little bit. 1 second, and then that would be, so that distortion coming on thing is, I'm glad that you said that, because I don't want to notice it coming on, because then it would seem like formulated. Like, okay, I'm kicking on this distortion to get some more, and sometimes it does if it's not good, and that is a bad thing. But hopefully what's happening is that just the natural flow of the music is bringing it up into this sort of you're playing, now the distortion's on, because it built up to that line. Distortion comes on. Now, because you want that sustain, right? And sometimes I'll turn it back off. Like, now you're back off, so just it's like the flow coming.
I've definitely done a good job of, while you're getting big, not becoming too big, i.e., spin doctors going.
Right.
As far as going commercial, what do you guys have in mind now?
Okay, that's a really good question for those of you who are interested in this kind of thing. We do think about this a lot. He asked about, okay, a couple of years back, were kind of often quoted in the media with some friends of ours who were in two other bands, which is the Spin Doctors and Blues Traveler. And Spin Doctors, of course, most of you probably know, whoo, off the charts, 3 million records, the whole thing. And first, and his question was, how are you, we seem to have been able to grow at a natural rate without alienating any of our fans, I hope, yet, and that kind of thing, which kind of seems to have happened with Spin Doctors. But first, let me say one thing, since I'm friends with those guys. They didn't do anything. They didn't. I hear a lot of times that they tried to sell out or something like that. They did, but I mean they didn't. They sold a lot of records, but that's what they wanted to do. And that's the kind of song they wrote. This song 5 years ago. 5 years ago they were playing Little Miss Can't Be Wrong, Two Princes, and people started buying it. And boom, there they go. In a way, it's kind of a scary thing because I just was with them last week when they were playing at Stowe. And in a way, the people who are coming to see them now are so much more interested in hearing the hits and so much less interested in hearing anything but the hits that when they start trying to do something other than the hits, there's like a dead feeling in the audience, which makes it very hard to improvise or to do anything because you feel that people aren't digging it. And you're like, well, screw it, let's, but they're gonna, I don't know, they're gonna find another album and they're gonna have lots of great songs, so that's great. But
What made you go off more on more of a soul kind of trend or whatever?
okay, he was asking how are the new album. Again, I don't know what this will mean to people who haven't heard it, but I think the main difference is probably the lyrics and singing, and then two things happen. First of all, I'll answer this quickly so I don't alienate people who haven't heard it. One is that my friend Tom, who writes the lyrics with me, got into a kind of a sticky how can I put this? He got in an interesting situation with his personal life, which ended up resulting in a lot of these really heavy lyrics, right? Just coincidence as much as anything, but that's what it was. At the same time as we were dealing with being on the road for 180 gigs a year and never trying to keep relationships going with people that with our respective loved ones at home, and really having a real hard go of it for a lot of the people in the band. And that ended up resulting, and also at the same time, we wanted to just attempt to sing about something, other than spotted stripes and multi beasts and stuff like that. So it all came out the way it came out. Yeah?
You kind of avoided the whole commercial for a long time and started producing. You produced those
Yeah.
independently?
Yeah, we did it. We just
Is that because of sort of what the whole?
At that point in time, we were broke, and we did the whole thing for $5,000. So compared to, just so you know, this is probably of interest to people about how did a band of 4 people who didn't have anything on the radio get to a point where we're playing in these, sheds and stuff and touring and the whole bit. And I wanted to make this point anyway, so that everybody knows. I run into a lot of let me just explain how it works very quickly, so you can have some kind of idea of avenues that are open if you want to make a career of being a touring musician. We really just beat it out on the road and constantly thinking about putting on a good show, not thinking about albums at all. That's the way it worked for us. Albums were an afterthought. Everything was live show, better, Practicing improvising, practicing singing, doing whatever we could, but spending our money on a light show, on getting the sound better, getting a good sound engineer, that kind of thing. And slowly, working our way into bigger clubs, and eventually it got to the point where we were touring the whole country, and we were playing in sizable places, and record companies just, they had a built-in audience. There was no, and finally, which was good about that was that we had a number of them approaching us. We never in any way tried to get a record contract.
I was actually wondering if you used the independent so that you could avoid having record companies.
No, at that point in time, it was like it was so out of the question that a record company would care about us in any way. That all we were thinking about doing, I mean, really, totally. I mean, when Long Boy got picked up by an independent, which is a real small label, independent label, which was our second album, we were, shocked and like, wow, great, okay. But I mean, it wasn't even, we never even thought that about record companies. It was purely like, can we get enough fans so that we can keep gas in the van and maintenance on the van and the equipment in the van. That's all we need. We'll sleep on the floor, we'll go in, blah, blah, blah. And went on. And then, later, I think it was Picture of Nectar was the first time, which is our third album, when these major labels were coming around, that we started saying producer or not producer. Like we really, had never even entered our minds about that kind of thing. And it's interesting because I do meet a lot of people in bands, younger people and stuff in bands, who they're like, think that these record companies are going to come along and save the day by signing them a contract and giving them $250,000 or something like that to record an album. Let me tell you something. Every penny that a record company gives you, you've got to give them back.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you. Okay, we're going to do Bewitched now. And, you know, this is pretty loose, so we're going to do whatever we feel, and different people are going to come up and play different styles. Take it easy. So here we go. to be a sort of an original twist on a rhythm changes kind of setup here that our keyboard player, Paige, wrote. It's called Megillah. One more special guest here at the beginning of the
Hey, Jen, give me more of his guitar on my monitor, please.
out the door. Ain't but one way out there. Lord, I just can't go out the door. 'Cause there's a man out there, might be your man, I don't know. Yeah, there's a man out there, might be your man, I don't know. 'Cause there's a man out there, might just have to be your man. I said it just might be your man. I said it. I really haven't such idea, but it might just happen to be your man. I don't know. Oh, oh, oh. Alright, here's a Beatles tune. night long. Rock me, baby, rock me all night long. Just keep on rocking me, baby, like my back ain't got no more. keep on rocking me, baby. You just don't know how good it feels. just march back to the kingdom. Can't get enough of this situation. Got me standing on secret. Never seem to put me down. Standing on secret. Never seem to put me down.
in front of the 7, that means minor.